Welcome to the Get Real Podcast, your high-octane boost of full-on reality therapy for personal, business, and investing success with your host, Ron Phillips, because somebody's got to tell it like it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Real Podcast. Ron Phillips here. I want to talk about returns. Don't need to belabor the point. I think we've talked about returns a lot, but I was talking to somebody here recently, and it amazed me at how little people understand about the gravity of the return, what it means, what the difference is between a 5%, a 10%, 20% return, what that means over time. Uninterrupted compounded growth is an amazing thing. And it's something that people, I don't think, fully comprehend for too many years to keep them motivated to stay in it. In other words, not interrupted. And that's unfortunate because it's incredibly powerful. And I think one of the best ways, think about that. I mean, in real estate, we talk about the four returns, right? We talk about cash return, which is kind of like a dividend in a stock, right? We talk about appreciation, which is kind of like capital growth in a stock. And then there's tax benefits that end up being a return. And there's also, most people have a mortgage. And so because there's a tenant, there's someone in paying that mortgage off. And every single time you make a payment on that, you're paying principal. So you're increasing with appreciation and you're decreasing the loan amount by principal reduction. So there's four of these returns, and principal reduction by itself, tax return by itself, a lot of times cash flow by itself. None of those really make that big of a difference by themselves. But when you stack them, it starts to be incredibly powerful. As you take a 3.6% principal reduction return and you add that to another 3-something percent return on taxes, and then you combine that with another 6% return, 7% return on cash flow, all of a sudden you're at double digits, and we haven't even talked about appreciation. And a small appreciation rate, again, talked about this before, but a small appreciation rate, like 3%, if you're leveraged into the property at 80%, in other words, you put 20% down, that's a 5 times return. So you're actually on 3% getting 15% an actual return on your money. So it doesn't require a huge return or a huge appreciation rate to get very, very large, impressive returns. Now, you can be in a boring market and still get double-digit returns just on appreciation alone. But when you stack everything together, it starts to get really, really impressive. And one of the ways to think about this that I think a lot of people don't is, how many years does it take for me to double my money? If I'm starting with 100,000, how long does it take me to have 200,000? If I'm starting with $500,000, how long does it take me to get to $1 million? And there's a very, very simple calculation for this. It's called the rule of 72. And if you're driving like I am, then you're going to have to do this in your head. But if you're not driving, just take out your phone, click on the calculator, and let's do this. This is super, super simple. And I'm going to start with something you can do in your head. Like at a 7% return, if you divide 7 into 72, it's 10 years. Roughly. There's a fractional percent, but it's basically 10 years, right? So that means if I invest $100,000 and I'm getting 7% return uninterrupted, that my money will double every 10 years. Okay. So if you're getting something less than that, then it's going to take longer. If you're getting something more than that, it's going to take less. And let's just talk really quickly about how much less. If you go to 10%, so 3% more, you go to 10%, you cut off down to 7 years. At 15%, it's 4.6 years. At 20%, and it's like 3 point something. I can't do it in the car, but you could do it. Take 72 divided by 20. It's 3 and change, probably 3.6, 3.7, somewhere around there. Years. So how important is that return number? It's not just a return. It's a mission critical number, especially depending on how many years you have that you want or you need your money to be doubling. And accelerating that is really, really important. So if you do what the financial planners say and you do it early, you put your money into an indexed fund and you let it ride, and that index fund gets roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of 7%, even 10% over time, uninterrupted now. That's the key to this. Uninterrupted, your money's going to double at 7% every 10 years. So every decade. If you start early and you have 4 decades, you can double your money 4 times. But most of the people that we talk to, well, it's not early anymore. It's like midlife. It's just before midlife, or in the 30s or 40s. We've missed a decade. We've got to catch up. And that's why it's so important. That's why real estate is so powerful, because when you stack some of these returns up and you start to see 15%, 20% on an annualized basis on some of these deals, just because you're stacking very small amounts up together, you can double your money in 3, 4 years, 5 years. And you think about it, the next step of that is you take $100,000 and you double it in 5 years. That means that you can either cash out, refinance that money, you can pull that money out, and you can go buy another property or another several properties, whatever the case may be. But your money that you invested did that. You didn't do that. It did that. So it's actually creating more assets for you if you invest it wisely. And that's the power of doubling your money much, much quicker. In real estate, typically we see 5 to 7 years, depending on what market cycle you're in. 5 to 7 years, you can pull that money back out again. And I say pull that money back. I mean, pull the additional money, the money that was created, you can pull that money out in a couple of different ways. You could do a 1031 exchange, or you could do a cash out refinance, like we talked a few weeks ago about. But the main point is that your asset created more assets. Your asset created more assets, and it did it very, very quickly. So instead of doubling your money every 10 years, you're doubling your money every 4, 5, 6 years, depending on what market you're in, how much appreciation there is in that market. And the other really important thing here is that even if the market is flat and you don't get any appreciation at all, you still have uninterrupted returns. Your return may have gone down because you're missing the appreciation rate, but you have uninterrupted compounded growth of some sort on those properties. And that's the key to making all of this work. So I just wanted to talk about that. And I wanted to give you guys a tool, the rule of 72, so you can understand, look at your stock portfolio, look at all of your investments, and you can, when you figure out what your return is, you can figure out how many years it's going to take you to double. It's a really cool method to understand the velocity of your money, how it's really working. Until next week, get out there and make something happen.
This has been the Get Real Podcast. To subscribe and for more information, including a list of all episodes, go to getrealestatesuccess.com.